Okay, so I have with me Jacey, and Jacey's family attends our church. She has one more semester at Cal Poly, and she's also on the Turf student leadership team this year. So this past July, JC, you, along with a few other people from our church and Cross Life, had joined together to do a week in Kayenta, and we call it YSMP Youth Summer Mission Team, right?
Missions project.
Oh, Missions Project YSMP. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you a few questions about your trip. And the first thing that I'm always curious about when I hear that people are attending a mission trip is I'm interested to know what were your personal reasons for committing to going on this trip?
I guess the reason why I wanted to go was I had time this summer, and usually during summer it's like internships or job or school. So just being able to have that time and just opportunity and just serve the local body there. I was just thinking about how I can serve outside of just FCBC as well, and it's always cool to see like what happens on a missions trip and how God works through people there and so forth. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to go.
Cool. So this was your first time going on a YSMP trip.
Is first YSMP.
Have you ever been on another mission trip before at
Mm,
FCBC?
I went with the Taiwan team 2 years ago,
Okay. Okay.
2019, and then this year with YSMP.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. And so I know that this trip was kind of up in the air because of the uncertainties with the COVID pandemic. So, what did you guys actually end up doing during the week you were in Kayenta? I know, did you partner with the local church there that we've been partnering with?
So we partnered with Kayenta Bible Church, Baptist Church, and they were the local body there, and we just did more inreach instead of outreach since Kayenta was actually one of the places that was hit the hardest with COVID. So
Okay.
we focused on Bible study for the adults, and then we did a VBS for the kids.
Okay, cool. That's usually what we do when we go out there. We'll set up a VBS for the kids and then the Bible study for the adults. So what was like your personal responsibility or role as part of a team member?
I was part of crafts and then also teaching, but I didn't end up teaching because originally when we planned for it, we didn't know how many kids. So we
Mhm.
split into two different groups of younger kids, first to third and then fourth to sixth. But we ended up just combining all the teaching together since there weren't that many kids.
Oh, okay. What was like the turnout for the kids in that
Um,
VBS?
we actually had 9 kids, but two of them were cross life kids that were with us, and then three of them were the pastor's kids. And then the rest were kids that were part of the church.
Oh, okay.
hmm
So, most of the kids are like churched kids.
Yeah,
There were
so
like no unbelievers, local unbelievers on this
hmm
BBS.
yeah.
One of the new things about this YSMP trip was that you guys had an intentional prayer wall. Do you want to
Mm,
explain what that is?
sure. So we had a prayer wall where we were able to keep people updated on what was happening throughout the week, every day,
Mhm.
and just any prayers that we had. And we had pop-up prayers where other people from the church or any friends or family were able to join and just pray with us. And
Mhm.
I guess just kind of like a check-in throughout the day to just see what was happening.
Yeah, and this prayer wall was on the any social media platform, right? Like if you wanted it through an email, they would send it to you. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, they asked you to join the page. I thought that was a really neat idea, actually. And I was
Mm,
really excited because usually like when a team goes out on a trip, you get their prayer requests and then you don't hear from them for the full week. So then you're just praying and not necessarily getting feedback. So I actually really liked the idea. And I think was it Ashlyn and Carolyn Wu who were managing those accounts and
Hmm.
keeping in contact with someone on the team?
Yeah, so I think we had a team group chat. So then there were just updates that were sent there, and then just any prayer requests or any updates about those prayer requests were sent through there.
Yeah, I think that's really it's one of the a really amazing way to use social media because every you can count on people to be on their phones checking updates. So I think it is a really amazing way to use social media for God's glory and also for prayer. And actually, on one of those days, I was able to join those pop up prayers, and I was actually really excited because I feel like to be praying from my own house, it's like I know God hears me, but I know out on the field, it's also really nice to know that people are actually praying and they're praying with you. And it was nice now that we have Zoom all set up that I when I signed onto the screen, I saw like your whole team there. And I also saw some other non-FCBC, actually just one individual. And I think he was like a pastor from a previous YSMP trip.
Yeah, I believe so. He was the pastor that from the church that FCPC partnered with, but they
Okay.
weren't able to send a team this year. So I guess he was able to pop in during the
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really cool to just come together for the 30 minutes that we had to pray together. And yeah, I thought that was really cool. What were some of the answered prayers that you guys had witnessed? Anything that from practical needs to spiritual needs?
Mm, I think the one main one was health. No one was got sick or with COVID throughout the trip,
Yeah, yeah.
which is definitely a praise.
Mhm.
There was, oh, on the first day, I know the AC broke. So it was definitely
Yes.
something that we were thankful for throughout the week when it was fixed. So that was something that I know was on the prayer list, I believe.
It was the first item I think posted on the
Uh-huh.
Instagram that I was keeping up with.
Mm, yeah, there was that. What else? Oh, another one was for team members to be able to step out of their comfort zones and get to know the local people, for people who are more shy or whatnot. So it was really nice, like towards the end of the trip, or just gradually, where we could see how like our church is integrating with their church and their local members, and just being able to just have conversations like with um, people that have like also like a slightly different culture than us too, and just like
Right.
hearing from them and just how we can even just pray for them and what this whole year of COVID was like for them too.
So those locals are mostly believers?
Mm-hmm. So most of them were members of that church, but then
Okay.
because of COVID, they weren't having in-person services as much, and
Oh,
attendance was pretty low there. So this was kind of also one of the bigger events that the church was having, where church members were like coming back to church.
okay.
Yeah.
So, what kinds of things would you find as common ground to, converse with this population?
Mm, I don't know what we talked about. I guess there's just how life has been. There were some collegians there too, or
Okay.
students who just graduate from high school. So I'm just talking about their hobbies, or some of them like to play sports too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think one of the last days we played capture the flag with some of the kids, and then also some of the high school collegians there too. So
Mhm.
that was like a fun way to just interact with them too. Um, yeah, I guess just talk about life in general. I think like there's not too much of a like difference or
Mhm.
that or contrast I mean,
Hmm.
yeah.
Did you feel like this whole COVID lifestyle had any, I guess, restrictions on how you were able to serve while you guys were out there?
I guess that just tied into the outreach. So we weren't able to do any outreach or door to door or just kind of go to the streets and just talk to people because we just wanted to be good witnesses in that and just being more sensitive in just how this whole past year had been for them.
Mm-hmm.
And just, yeah, so we just kind of stayed within the church and we had like mass indoors whenever we were around people. We would just keep that so that they would feel comfortable even coming back and just talking to us too, since we're visiting from out of
Right.
the area.
Was there anything new that you learned while you were on this missions trip?
Um, I think one of the main things was kind of just like a part of their culture too, like their history. I was talking to one of the parents there,
Mhm.
and I guess diabetes is a common health issue for them, and just
Oh,
like
interesting.
the past, like what from like colonization and like what they were fed and what they're able their diet is, and how it's almost just genetic now for them.
Wow. What
But
is like a food source that you think is, does anyone know is feeding this health
uh,
concern?
I believe it's kind of more processed food. I could be wrong, but I feel
Processed
like
foods.
more processed, or things that didn't have necessarily nutrition in it. Um,
Oh, I see.
and it's just kind of like so that to sustain them in
I
that.
see.
So it was interesting, like just learning about their history because you kind of like read about it also, I guess like growing up, but just to be able to like talk to them and just see how like it impacts them was, I guess like really like interesting to hear about.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that is really eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the last question is, what is one attribute of God you were able to experience on this trip?
Mm, and it's just his goodness throughout the entire trip, because there was just a lot of things that we didn't know what to expect of like, oh, how many kids are there going to be?
Mhm.
How are we going to run the VBS? And I think a lot of people were pretty unprepared coming into the trip, but we were
Mhm.
able to just, I guess even just the way that our team was able to stay united throughout the trip and just help each other. When we were having prep time, we had like the crafts team like doing stuff, or maybe worship, practicing the hand motions, and then like teaching. They're all helping each other, and just even having just the time to go over what they're going to teach and just make even corrections and so on.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I guess it was just really nice to see that, and just how when you have that common vision and just
Mhm.
that unity with one another, how like that's how the church should be, and how
Yes.
we can strive towards that, to just glorify God together. So that was just
Yes.
that was really nice to see over the trip.
Amen. I love that. I'm getting really excited hearing about this. I totally agree that on a missions trip, because you're really removed from your daily responsibilities, and I'll add in there distractions, that you have, you feel that vision for that time to serve God and work, wholeheartedly, and you recognize the need to do it with humility and unity, and just let's make the best that you can with the resources and time that God gave you. And then, yeah, I think that's great. I think that it just sounds that it sounds like you guys had have got to experience a lot of spiritual fruit yourselves. In the future, who do you think should consider going on a YSMP trip?
Anyone.
Anyone? Like, do you have to
Uh,
be a student or can you be a child? I heard that there were like two kids from a family that went, or
mhm.
some adults.
There were some adults. It was just a mix of people, but I guess that's also another thing to just see different life stages of people. And I guess being on a trip together, you spend literally all the time with them.
Yeah.
You get to know them.
You guys
Uh,
like cooked and cleaned together, right?
yeah. And then we had the long car rides together, so those are fun.
Yes,
But
of
just
course. Oh my
so
goodness.
yeah.
I miss those experiences, those days when like you could just spend time with the church like that. It's, yeah,
Hmm.
it brings back good memories.
Hmm.